What's up, everyone? It's Greg. I'm back with another brand new episode after my long vacation to the wildernesses of Alaska, visiting family and climbing some mountains. But today on the Opportunity Podcast, I got my friend Manick Bhan coming in. He's the founder of Search Atlas, Link Graph, and Otto, which is a AI tool inside of Search Atlas. So I thought this was a pretty cool business. Search Atlas is in a sense, really going after the SEMrush and Ahrefs customers out there is competing in that space. And I just think that is intriguing because that to me, this is a much more mature landscape to compete in. And I think what Manic has built here with Search Atlas is pretty interesting, pretty cool. I have a lot of friends who are like using Search Atlas as their main SEO workhorse at this point. So I thought, why not get the man, the myth, the legend on here and see what we can learn? So that's exactly what I did today. So if you are in SEO or you want to use SEO and you want a tool that might provide a little bit more action instead of just dashboards and data, which is something Manic and I talk about briefly in this episode, then this episode especially might be very interesting to you. All right, with that said, let's get into the actual podcast, and I will see you on the other side. All right, I got Manick Bhan with me here today, the owner and founder of LinkGraph, Otto, and Search Atlas. So, Manick, I've been hearing about you for a while now, actually in the Facebook groups, which we're probably in a lot of the same groups, about how great Search Atlas is. And I thought, why not get Manick on the podcast to talk about this and give my audience some knowledge about Search Atlas and what you're doing? Because it sounds like you got a lot going on if they're not familiar. So for my audience that doesn't know you, Manic, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit? Tell us where you are in the world and a bit about yourself.
Sure. Great to be on here, Greg. Thank you for the invitation. And Empire Flippers is obviously legendary. It's a privilege to be here. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Manick Bhan, the founder of Search Atlas Group. We are a platform for agencies that specialize in SEO to be able to deliver and automate SEO campaigns that are error-free and have the ability to kind of proven get results. I've been on this journey for 7 years. I started my journey by in SEO with my first technology venture about 7 years ago in the live entertainment ticketing space. We were competing with StubHub, Ticketmaster, and obviously, you guys probably understand this that the number one ticketing industry or business in the world is Google. People go to Google to buy tickets, and so to be found, SEO is everything, and that's where I cut my teeth in SEO, trying to build authority, trying to build backlinks, trying to crack the code to Google. And that's how I started. And in the last 7 years, by building an agency and building the SaaS platform that we have today, I believe we've cracked the code to that equation. And that's the journey that I've really been on, is figuring out how Google works and helping other people master it using our knowledge as well as our software.
A great answer. Ticketing is for sure. I can imagine that'd be a pretty tough place to learn SEO because I imagine it's pretty aggressive competition.
Aggressive to say the least. It's everything there's like, it's David versus Goliath, you know.
Right, right.
I'm
What a
taking
place for you to start learning. Well, you are in the trenches just like me when it comes to SEO. Arguably much more than I am with everything you're doing. And this is a weird time for SEO. I think everyone can kind of agree with that. So, in your perspective, everything that's going on between AI, the algorithm updates, they're just across the board. Walk us through, in your view, what the current state of SEO is. What challenges are people facing, and what advancements are being made?
Yeah. So I think one of the biggest problems that Google is dealing with is their response to AI content, and basically that AI automation that is now has hit their search engine, and figuring out how do they surface relevant content that's high quality and engaging. And we've seen them change their position on AI content. Obviously, the leak gave us way more insight than we ever had into how Google works. And I think they're kind of attacking the search results, trying to figure out how do they maintain quality. And also with other players like Perplexity and ChatGPT now with the new search engine that's releasing, they want to make sure they maintain their advantage. I don't fear for them. I think they're going to be fine in this. I think that Google's basically a fast follower. When they see something clever that works, they already own the mind share and they'll replicate it. But watching them do that is going to be super interesting. I think that as an SEO, where we really have to really focused right now is on the North Star of what Google really wants, which is they want high quality content. They want experiences that people resonate and engage with. And they want us to keep building authority from reputable websites. So I think holistic SEO is the future of SEO, and it's where we need to be focused with our teams.
And by holistic SEO, I know people have different definitions of that based on which SEO you're speaking to. So, what is your definition of holistic SEO?
Yeah. So I call holistic SEO, for me, it's four pillars. The pillars are, it's a framework that I call exact. X stands for user experience and behavior. A, authority. C, content. And T, technicals. Those four altogether for me are holistic SEO. And the Google equation, essentially the simplified version, organic traffic equals ranking potential times ranking signals. Ranking potential comes from having web pages and content that are indexable in search. Ranking signals come from authority and the UX and behavior signals that Google has to tell whether or not our content is good or not. And so by cracking both of those two variables in the Google equation through holistic SEO, that's the paradigm.
That makes sense. And I agree with that definition. I've often joked that SEO becomes so much easier if you're like building a real brand because then it's just like content and links, and oftentimes just content because a lot of the brand takes care of a lot of the other stuff for you as you build it out. But yeah, I agree with that. In terms of like what's happening with Google, I also agree. I think Google's going to be fine. A lot of people are talking about how OpenAI is going to kill Google, like when ChatGPT first launched, which I never thought. My answer to that is always like, if anyone kills Google, it will be Google as they like panic roll through all of this stuff that's going on. So it's painful to watch, but I do think that they'll come out ahead. It will be interesting to see how that plays out. While we're on that topic, like you have, a bunch of insight into this type of stuff. Is AI content like rankable in your view? Is that a safe route to go using AI content, or are you more of the perspective like don't ever use AI, make it all manual, like with actual human writers? Like, what's your take on that?
Yeah. So we have an interesting like position in this because through our platform, people are publishing probably about 10,000 articles a month through Search Atlas.
Hmm.
And we can see what happens to that content after it's published. A lot of AI content is produced on our platform. And we've also gone through evolutions of how we generate that content and how we improve it. And what's interesting is we've seen the AI content that we used to produce maybe about a year ago. That AI content often is having a hard time indexing. We'll actually try to get an index by Google and they'll see it, we'll put the indexing request in, and then they won't index it. And so we've had to learn like what's the difference between what we did a year ago versus today? What's changed? And what we're seeing working today is AI content that has images, that has internal links, that has H1s through H4s, that has the right technical SEO within the content. That AI content very much ranks. What we're seeing now is those old articles that are not indexing, when we replace them with new AI content that's been generated in the engine and then submitted to Google programmatically, we see that it takes between 20 and 30 minutes for Google to index the content and rank it. So we know that it can rank, and it can rank fast if it's been regenerated. And I'll add one other important thing, which is that we're using Claude more so than OpenAI.
Nice. I have not tested out the new Claude project stuff yet, but I have heard it's gotten really, really good with you being able to work from it. I'm assuming you're just pulling that in from the API though into the Search Atlas software.
Yeah, we do use their API. What we do is we kind of take the SERP data, the top 20 search results, we feed that into the large language model. So it gets what we call super training around that niche or keyword. So it really understands what Google thinks is relevant for the keywords that you're trying to rank for. And then when we build the content, we start with a content brief that's AI generated using the NLP data, the entity information from Google's knowledge graph, a bunch of different factors that we put together into that soup. And then we generate the content heading by heading. So each heading is built individually and is optimized so that the final content that we produce is like as ready to be published as possible. You don't have to edit it. And it includes images and internal links and all that stuff. The internal linking piece was probably one of the hardest for us to figure out, But yeah, it's a fully baked in process, and one click publishing is supported as well. So you can instantly publish it to WordPress and Shopify.
But I answered that question I had there. I have more Search Atlas questions, but I want to talk a little bit more high level SEO stuff. But before I do that, there is one question. I don't want to forget about it. So you mentioned internal links was the hard part. I remember playing around with a few like internal linking tools that are supposed to be using AI, and it was a lot of missing more than hitting. So talk to me a bit about like how you guys kind of solve that issue, or is this still something that you're trying to like truly solve?
That's a great question. So what we did is we realized the we actually started with experiments. We didn't try to build the solution first. We actually ran testing. What we did is we took 10 test sites and we tried different internal linking schemes where we manually embedded internal linking into the articles to understand what is the best and most optimum approach. Is it taking blogs and linking up to one pillar page? Is it reciprocal linking? Like, how do we do it? And we actually did the experiment first, where we actually discovered this is what we learned. We learned that reciprocal linking, when you have articles that are contextually relevant, internally linking to one another, it'll actually boost the rankings across the board for all those articles. We
Mhm.
changed only internal linking. We added internal links and we saw a massive improvement, very notable improvement. I think 80% of the pages that had internal links got at least a 20-25% lift in total ranking keywords and search impressions, which is quite significant, right? So we knew that internal linking was a great strategy if done in that particular way. So then the next question was your question, which is how do we find the most relevant articles on the site to internally link to one another? Mathematically, the process is it's a mathematical process called cosine vector distance. So what we do is we take those pages, we move them into content vectors, and we find their nearest neighbors, and those are the internal links that we suggest. And then through Otto, you can click one button and deploy tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of internal links across the website using that algorithm.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think the tools that I use, and this was early days of like even ChatGPT was relatively new, and the tools I was playing with came out. So I'm sure the process has gotten better. But it sounds like you are reading, like Otto Search Atlas is reading the entire website to get that topical relevance to figure out what should or should not be like, say, in the silo, the content silo.
That's right. In order for us to do this, we have to index the entire website and put that into our database. And then take that and we put it into the AI model. So the AI model is actually specialized in understanding that particular business. It has all its blog posts, its service pages, it has a knowledge graph built around that business, as well as its Search Console data and its Google Business Profile data. So it really understands the business. And then when it's making its recommendations, it's just a lot better than what you'll get from like a chat GPT plain vanilla model that just knows nothing.
Right, for sure. In terms of like hit or miss, I'm sure this is a really hard question to answer, but I'm curious if you happen to know. Like, if so let's say I have 5,000 pages, so a massive website, right? I run it
Yeah.
through Search Atlas, and like I could spend all this time having someone like go and manually check that those internal links are good, but like in your experiments with this tool, like how accurate is that internal linking? Like, is it like linking like 90% accuracy in terms of topical relevance, where maybe one or two is going off into like weirdo land, like linking to something you shouldn't be linking to on the website? How does it play out?
Yeah. So for the searchatlas.com website, we have 530 pages on the site. We found in Auto a total of 4,400 internal linking opportunities that we programmatically deployed to the site. Of those internal linking opportunities, when you look through them, we actually did the taste testing with our team where we
Mhm.
manually tweaked and calibrated the algorithm so it's kind of in a Goldilocks zone for most people. One of the challenges is when you have articles that are like 80% similar, do you include them or do you not? Like there's always 85 and 90 and 95. We always want those, but do you include the 80 or do you not include the 80? I think we cut ours off at like 80 or 85%. And so you'll see like super, super relevant articles. And then you'll see some that are like still like on topic, but they may not be like a 100% surefire hit. However,
Gotcha.
I don't think there's a big negative penalty to including those in the internal linking. There's no penalty. There's actually only benefit because they are relevant.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think a lot of SEOs they get a bit rigid. Maybe not so much nowadays, but there used to be definitely a rigidity like, oh no, no link outside of this silo. Everything must be about blenders or whatever it is. Like God forbid you link to like another category on your WordPress site, right?
Definitely.
So yeah, I like that, man. I think that's really cool. And that leads me into, backing up into a more general question here. All of your experience with the agency and the software that you're building, how would you recommend for an SEO, maybe they're a solopreneur, on how they should prioritize their SEO tasks? And they're most likely, on limited resources and budget. And they're looking for something like this internal linking tool, right? That's going to save them a ton of time, definitely a ton of time in a Google Sheet. So in your perspective, how should someone attack SEO from most important to least important in prioritization?
Okay, so that's a super important question. And I think it's the essence of practical SEO. It's what I call minimal viable SEO, right? Because we just don't have infinite time and infinite resources. We can't optimize every little thing to the 99th percentile. We have to really move quickly and do as much as we can, as little as we can.
Mhm.
The thing I would recommend to people is you need to step into the new era of this industry, which is automation. And in the automated landscape, you have to find a tool that automates the SOP that you're delivering. In your SOP, you likely have things like titles and metas and image alts and internal links and broken link fixes and on page optimization and a myriad of different things. You need to find a solution that will allow you as the agency owner to deliver that for your customer at a 90th percentile and be able to lather, rinse, and repeat and move on. Because otherwise, you don't have the margins in it for your business. And otherwise, too, you're going to take too long to get results for that client. So a lot of people say, SEO takes 6 months to see results. A lot of people sell SEO that way because they want their clients to be patient. The truth is, like, because now today we have over 2,000 websites with Otto installed on them. So we've got a huge petri dish. What we can see now is that SEO doesn't have to take even a month to see results. We typically are going to see a 30 to 50% improvement in SEO within 3 weeks to 4 weeks. That's
Wow.
what we're seeing right now in our case studies. The 6 months of SEO, the truth of that is that it takes 6 months of work to see the result. But if you can automate 6 months of work within a couple hours of someone on your team using one of those as sophisticated automation tools, then you can see that 6 months of SEO boom happen in a much shorter period of time. So that's what I would recommend is for people to really step out of the conventional and step into the supernatural, like where like SEO is going. The new era is dynamic SEO. It's not this manual static SEO done by humans and hands. It's dynamic SEO where you're freeing up your time from implementing to be more strategic, to be more creative, to spend time creating better quality content and a better user experience. And also stepping into other marketing landscapes beyond SEO, like PPC.
So I agree with everything you said there, except for the usage of the word supernatural. I think that was a real missed opportunity to not say astronomical, considering we were talking about astronomy before the podcast started. For my audience out there, Manick has a published scientific paper, so we were nerding out about my love for astronomy earlier. But yeah, I agree, man. So I have a friend. He has a Shopify SEO agency, and he comes from a more of an Amazon FBA background. That was the ecosystem he used to play in. And this guy's crushing it now. He's probably up to like 30, 40K a month in revenue with this little SEO agency. And he came from a dead start. And all he's been doing is mostly AI content and like doing a more manual version of what you just described, but still pretty automated. And he's getting real results for these e-commerce store owners in like 30 to 35 days often. So like, yeah, the whole idea of the 6 month until SEO, plays out, like I think that was true before AI, because to your point, it was a lot of work, a lot of like project management for each section. But I do think that's going away a bit. So I like the fact that you're talking about that. For people who are stuck in that conventional kind of mindset, and like I'm generalizing here, but a lot of them are pretty anti AI. I know a few prominent people in SEO that are pretty anti AI. Like, what would you say to them?
Well, the movie Terminator, is obviously it's a great movie. People have a lot of fear of like the AI cyborgs coming and, taking over and enslaving humanity. I think like there's going to be like two kinds of practitioners in digital marketing over the next 1 year. There's going to be the people that resist it and they want to do it by hand and the human way. And there are going to be others that do this combo human plus AI and figure out how to harness the power of AI and automation. And between the two, I think you and I both know that the AI agencies, the AI practitioners are going to vastly outperform the ones that are still rigid and stuck in their own ways. Those dinosaurs are not going to be a part of the next chapter because realistically, when you think about the promise of this technology, AI asking AI itself to answer questions and do that while we're sleeping or while we're away at lunch, how can you compete with that? Like you really can't compete with that. Where we as humans have to operate in our zone of genius is to become more creative, is to become more strategic and more visionary and less focused on the implementation details and the technicals and all the really nitty gritty. We have to find ways of solving that in a way that lets technology do that for us. The ones that really figure out how to do that at the highest level are going to be the ones that scale and succeed the most. I'm seeing one or two man agencies scaling to the seven-figure mark now. We have agencies that are using Otto, my friend Jake Tlapek, the Wizard of Marketing on TikTok. He scaled his agency like crazy using this, as well as other solutions like GHL and some other platforms that are really effective using AI. You can do it. You can get to becoming a huge digital marketing agency over 1 million a year with just a couple people, two, three, four, five people relying on AI to deliver your product and service. It can be done. I'm seeing it happen every day and every day more and more.
So much of what you said is coming out in a solo podcast I'm doing with my own like personal thoughts of AI. I go big detail on the creative, like being creative and being strategic and having that bigger vision. But yeah, on LinkedIn, man, I've been seeing so many people talking about how the agency model is going to die because of AI. Like, in my view, like, what are you talking about? Like, the agency owner's life is going to get so much better with AI. The people who refuted me, they were saying, well, why would anyone ever hire an agency if AI can do it? It's like, well, why would a CEO of a Fortune 100 company be sitting inside of a mid-journey Discord chat? Like, he's not doing that. He's hiring people to do that. Like, as long as marketing is a thing that companies need, and they'll always bring it in house, they're going to hire the agency to do that, to use the tools, right? That's my own view on it, which they didn't appreciate because they were against the AI stuff. So,
Yeah. But also, like, you're so right there. The other thing that they're missing is, and not to beat these guys up too much, because if they're listening here, but let's beat them up a little bit, right? The thing that they're missing is that, like, when you think about the evolution, like, of technology and progress, is it starts with people who are practitioners like you and me in the trenches, doing this day in, day out for our clients and having inspiration and creativity and saying, I just discovered that there's an opportunity, whether it's with Google, Facebook, YouTube, whatever it might be, LinkedIn, to really harness or get a better result out of the platform by doing X. And then they take that X and they build software to do that. But it doesn't start with software. It starts with someone with their hands figuring it out in a manual way to then build the AI plus automation plus the software solution to then be able to take this creative concept and express it through technology at scale. And there's always going to be a bleeding edge of that as Google changes, as Facebook changes, as Instagram changes. And the practitioners are the ones that know it better than anyone else. So if you want to be at the cutting edge, you got to find the agency that is committed to being at the cutting edge and partner with them. That's how you stay at the bleeding edge. And those agencies are always going to be finding and using the best technology, the best tools, and maybe even building some of their own. That's just my view.
oh, yeah, I mean, you are kind of case in point of that, right? Because you started off as an agency and moved into creating the software, if I'm not mistaken, right?
100%. Yeah,
Uh,
that's right.
that's often where the best software comes from. Agency owners are creating it to make their lives better. I think this leads into my next question quite well because we're talking about the people being rigid and doing things the conventional way. With all your experience, what you see out there happening right now, what are the most common SEO mistakes you're seeing business owners make?
Most common SEO mistakes are spending time doing the wrong things. I think that, when we look at campaigns, we see agency, we see brands running SEO campaigns. I see between 50 to 70% of their resources are being wasted on ineffective link building strategies, ineffective SEO techniques, outdated methodologies. I see a huge amount of waste in the way that they deploy resources. Also, part of it is labor. Like they'll over index on human labor where they can rely on automation. And so the biggest problem I'm seeing in the industry is just like we haven't fully shifted over into a results oriented orientation where everything we're doing needs to have a proven quantitative ROI in isolation. So like when we run campaigns, we don't do one thing. We'll do like 50 things or 20 things, right? To improve our clients. Like we work on many facets. But I ask people like of those 20 things, are you sure that every single one of those things you're doing is effective? Have you tested it? Is there a white paper somewhere that has proven it? A lot of people do things in SEO that are ineffective or outdated. And I know this because we have these discussions with them. They argue, they say that doesn't work or that's not the right way to do it. And they're hearing from some other armchair SEO guy in the game for a while who has just a lot of maybe a little bit belligerent and also really like just very one like not open to like changing their perspective on things. When you run the experimentation and you let the science and the math and the data be the guide, it takes you away from that place of waste and allows you to be more data driven and scientific and impactful with your work. So we spend over 20K a month with my experiments team. I spend probably about 4 hours every Monday just working with them and looking at their experiments and their testing because everything we do is tested. It has to be tested. I think every agency needs to have like an experiments team internally where they're spending a certain amount of resources. It can be a couple thousand a month, whatever it is, on testing and validating. Or join a community where you're finding people that have that type of orientation already, where they're not just saying things, but they're actually proving them with case study.
100%, man. I always tell people they should have some kind of R&D thing that they play around with. It doesn't have to be the main thing and probably shouldn't be because it's an experiment, right? Might go wrong. But I think that's a very, very important thing. And yeah, on the waste thing, I also agree. Like, I don't see it as often as I used to, but like before AI, even there was people like, oh, you need to create like ultra high quality, helpful content to rank in Google. I was like, no, you don't. Like I showed them Kyle Roof's lorem ipsum experiments, right, where he's just ranking a bunch of lorem ipsum for terms. Like no one would think that this Latin is high quality content for this keyword, right? So it's a bit of a shattering of perspectives. I do think that people need to test more, get around people who are testing more. So I agree with that. In terms of what is working right now, I'd be curious on your thoughts on this. So, one of the things at Empire Flippers that we're famous for is selling affiliate sites, right? Display sites, affiliate sites. Of course, we sell a lot more than that. We sell e-commerce stores and agencies, all that good stuff too. But a lot of my friends in the affiliate site space specifically have been hit pretty hard with everything that's going on with the Google algorithm updates. So they're getting these kind of penalties that are going on. So I guess my question for you is kind of two questions. Like broadly speaking, how would you go about like what's your strategy for recovering from a Google penalty? And then the follow up is, are you seeing a different kind of penalty happening to affiliate site owners that are more like info query based?
Yeah. So there have been various different kinds of algorithmic penalties that Google levies on websites. The hardest thing about that is to figure out which one you're hit with, right? If you're hit with like a site wide AI content, low quality site penalty that's more manual action driven, recovering from that is a lot harder than if it's a content driven penalty because Google thinks that you have unhelpful content. What I advise, like when people are stepping into that unknown and trying to figure out what do we do to recover, is there's some things that I would say you should do, some things I would say categorically do not do. Let me start with the do nots first. Do not go, because some people need to hear this, do not go and wholesale update the templates across your website. Do not completely go and redesign the website thinking that it's a user experience issue. And the reason I've been hit with the helpful content update is that my content is not helpful enough because it's not designed well enough. Please do not do that. If you do that, Google will basically have to re-rank all of your pages and your content because that content, they see a huge delta in it in the template and they need to figure out whether it's good or not good anymore. So that will cause your traffic to fall even more. So do not do that. Do not go and try to remove large amounts of content that is already ranking for the website. To go to the do's section, follow the best practices, implement good holistic SEO. So, what I advise is boost internal linking, optimize the on page for all of the on page fundamentals, basically improve the quality of all of these landing pages as much as possible. Reduce the document retrieval time, make the pages faster. Don't redesign the template, but figure out if there are templates on the site that are slow. How do you clean up the HTML code so that they will load faster? And probably one of the most important is go back through and do a content update. There are black hat ways and white hat ways. The black hat way, which we've actually tested it, we're doing more experiments on this now, which I'm going to share, is to just go and update the timestamp on your content. Okay, it
Classic.
works.
That's been around for a while. It still works. It's good to hear.
Like that's the caffeine update with Google. They're looking at how recently were these documents they're ranking updated, and there's a positive ranking signal for newly updated content. So if you just go and you update those timestamps, you will see a lift in your traffic. That's the kind of not the right way to do it. The right way to do it is to actually go in and try to improve the content. So you're updating it, not just the timestamp, but the content itself to make it more relevant. And you can do that using AI. You can bring that content into AI tools. We have them as well, where you take the content in, you figure out how optimized is it for the keyword that you're trying to rank for. So, like, let's say Rolex watches, for example, you have a page on that. Add that as your target keyword, find some similar keywords that the page is ranking for, and figure out how much the entities on Google in their knowledge graphs you have in your content. Boost the content relevance metrics on those pages. You can do that using Otto programmatically now, where we automatically will do that for you. You install the pixel across the site and you deploy the semantic analysis and KBT module, and it will actually fix a lot of those issues and it can bring your site back. We have not yet published a Otto plus helpful content update case study yet, but it is one of the things that I'm looking to do and share some of the results we've been seeing because it has been able to help.
I was in a mastermind a few months ago, and I have a lot of respect for you. He's really, really good in the affiliate site space. When the helpful content update came about, he's like, I don't know how to rank an affiliate site anymore. Like they've tried everything, all these experiments, and just like nothing seems to be working for him. So I'm curious, have you done any tests specifically on like affiliate sites to see if like there's something that have been hit with the helpful content update and seen them brought back, or have you not seen that kind of data yet?
We have people in our community that are affiliates, SEO affiliates. We have people that are rank and rent, people at different business models within the SEO space, and even some people that have like just PBNs and they're trying to improve the performance of the PBNs. And then we've also got like business owners and brands and
Mhm.
agencies. And all of them have shared different case studies for how they've used the technology. The technology is more agnostic. It's not really meant to be used in any one
Right.
arena. It can be used kind of as like a Swiss Army knife for different people, different industries. And there have been people that have posted pretty significant gains with sites that kind of had this downward trajectory and they hit zero. We've been able to see that they can bring them back. I've seen that happen so many times. Like the heartbeat goes to zero for the traffic of the website, and then they deploy Otto, and then the traffic skyrockets. I've seen that chart many times shared.
When the traffic hits the bottom, that's when they go to the Facebook group to say SEO is dead. That's when the automation kicks in. It's really good to hear, man. So that is some like good news for my audience out there. Because to be honest, a lot of the affiliate SEOs I'm friends with are pretty, wounded from all of this. So that's good to hear that there's still some hope left for them if they were affected negatively by the helpful content update. So that's good. Now I do want to pivot into actual Search Atlas itself as a business here. So, what inspired you to? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I forgot one really important thing
Sure.
that I think is really critical, and it's indexation. One of the problems that we've seen with a lot of like content heavy sites is that their total percentage of their content indexed will be like 30 to 40%. Have you seen that on any of your sites?
I wouldn't be comfortable enough to throw out a number. I'm not like familiar with like enough with each individual site we have to be able to throw out a number, basically.
Okay. We saw that on our website when we were publishing a lot of this content, and a
Hmm.
lot of other people have reported similar issues with indexation. Indexation is one of those things now that Google has become really, like, you asked what shifted with the algorithm because of all the AI content. Google's more choosy than they were before about indexing and ranking content in the search engine. So you need to also think about your indexation. Go to your search console, check your indexation percentages. If you have a problem with your indexation, there is a solution. It's called instant indexing and dynamic indexing. And those are modules in Otto, which will send over 200 URLs to Google for indexing per day. So we've been able to get our site from 40% indexed to, I think it's like 85, 90% now, by just enabling that and letting it push the content to Google automatically. Big impact.
Yeah, that is funny. I never thought about that. That makes so much sense that Google would be a lot more precious on what it's indexing now that the internet is just being filled with low quality AI spam. So that makes a total amount of sense that it's harder to actually get them to crawl your website in the first place now. I mean, that's basically what you're saying here, right? So you need to put in that extra effort, like, no, look at me. This, I promise, this is actually good content.
Yeah, and if you're publishing a lot of new content, if that content is on the homepage of the website, like your blog articles, if they're in the
Hmm.
homepage, Google will index them way more likely, like probably 70, 80% chance they're going to index that content. If you're only publishing it in your blog hub and it's about 3 layers removed from your homepage, the new content, the chance of them indexing the new stuff is a lot lower. And so what you have to do is you have a couple options. One, in your template for your homepage, include the new blog articles that are being published into the bottom of that homepage so that they're being indexed that way if you're publishing a lot of content. That will help indexation. That's your first option. Your second option is restructure the blog up so that the new articles, they're in that second layer of the site, but very prominent. That'll work, but not as well. And then the third option is you can enable dynamic indexing in Auto, which will move those links into the footer of the homepage automatically. And once they get indexed, they will be removed and a new link will be put in. So it kind of automates that for people that don't want to change the homepage template and they want to do it programmatically.
Very cool. I like that. That's a nugget I haven't heard anyone say, but that does make a lot of sense to me. What's going on there? I think that's super valuable. But yeah, we're coming up closer to the time, and I do want to get into the Search Atlas itself. So, talk to me a bit about like what inspired you to start this, because this is a pretty crowded market, and you're going up against people like Ahrefs and SEMrush. I imagine you compete pretty heavily with both of these companies. So, talk to me about what problem does Search Atlas and Otto solve that these other two companies don't necessarily have.
Sure. So there's 3 really important ones in that to me. The first one is Ahrefs, SEMrush. These are tools that are built by people who are not really practitioners of SEO. They're basically software companies, but they're not in the business of getting results for clients. So they don't really know what works. All they're doing is they're building more reports, more data, more information overload, and they don't do anything action oriented to actually improve your results with Google or with anything else for that matter. If you don't do something with the tool, nothing changes. I hated that because ultimately we need something that's a solution oriented approach, not more information, more backlink data, more metrics, more overwhelm. We need action, not data. So that was the first thing we wanted to solve. The second thing is those companies are really, they kind of lick the boots of Google. They're not willing to step out and take a chance and do things that are innovative. They're only playing within like the sandbox of like the squeaky white hat SEO stuff. They're not willing to get experimental. And that's a big problem because right now, with the way the industry is changing, when we were building our agency, we had over like 15, 20 tools that we were using to practice SEO. And we were paying for Ahrefs and SEMrush. We were paying maybe over 5,000 a month for all these SEO tools. So Search Atlas allows you to get that entire toolkit, but for like $100. So massive savings, massive efficiency gain. And then the third thing is if you're an agency or a solo practitioner or freelancer, anytime like you do a sales call with your clients and you're trying to explain to them what's wrong with their SEO and you're sharing, your screen showing them SEMrush, showing them Ahrefs. What do you think they do after the call? They'll go and they'll buy the tool, right? The greatest sales force for Ahrefs and SEMrush is you. You've been getting everyone to buy those tools by demoing them on your sales calls. We built a platform so that you, as the agency owner, you keep everyone in your ecosystem. You white label our platform. We're a white label platform. We're meant to be white labeled. So our platform has your branding, it's on your domain, and it's really built as a retention system for you to be able to get results, show the results, and also win new business within your own platform that doesn't drive people to these other platforms.
So you kind of went the GHL style, like the white labeling of the software so the agency can keep their branding on it.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're a big fan of HL. We work very closely with them. They got great software, and I think their positioning to be in service to the agencies in the community was really inspirational, and it's one that we're following very closely too.
I thought it was an incredibly smart move on their part. You'll have to introduce me to Sean Clark. I'd love to get him on the podcast. I'm a fan of GHL as well with what they're doing. So, but yeah, that's cool, man. I like that. The other question I have is, so building these tools, you mentioned like, $5,000 a month that you're paying for all these SEO tools. Now with Search Atlas, you can bring that down to 100. Like, how is this possible? Like, what's this magic ingredient you figure out how to combine all these different features into your product, which I'm assuming is a bootstrap product, right? Like you haven't raised any money for Search Atlas.
That's right. I funded the company myself. Fortunately, our agency, we're at 8 figures. I think we have a really good reputation in the community, in the industry for being really good at SEO. And that's allowed us to work with some big brands like the Olympics and Shutterfly and Serena and Lily and some other big brands. So we were able to use those partnerships engagements to help us have the capital to learn and do the R&D, to build the software. And instead of just building copycat stuff where we were just trying to build more data and reporting and analytics tools, we started this journey from the perspective of how do we get results for these clients fast? How do we make this fast and effective and efficient? So we've been optimizing for the last 7 years toward a different objective than anyone else has. And so that's the reason why we're here. We are a full replacement for Ahrefs and SEMrush and a bunch of the other SEO tools that people out there are using. And what I'd say is give it a try. I can tell you with confidence now because we have hundreds of case studies where people have been able to reproduce my case studies and our results with their own results. I'm very confident that if you try it, you're going to see the same thing that we're seeing. Within 2 to 3 weeks, you're going to notice a significant improvement in your visibility in Google Maps, your visibility in Google search, and overall like revenue to the business, leads to the business across the board.
Oh, that's awesome. Search Atlas has been around for 7 years.
We've been building Search Atlas for 7 years. It began as a platform that was only available to our enterprise customers on the link graph side. We made the
Hmm.
decision to allow other people to use it starting really last year. So we opened the platform up to the broader community. And that's probably why, a lot more people have just started hearing about us because we opened it up.
Yeah, okay. So this makes more sense in my mind because in my mind, because I had just heard about Search Atlas like a few months ago when I reached out to you on Facebook with my cold DM, like, come on to my podcast. So I was shocked, like, man, you are moving really fast as a bootstrap owner into the space, like crushing it. But it makes so much more sense knowing this context now. Like you've been building this, perfecting it on all your enterprise clients for years. So now the picture comes together a bit better for me. Like still incredibly impressive. I think that's super cool. And this goes back to, I think I said it off the podcast, like some of the best software tools are almost always made by agency owners to solve their own problems. Like just focusing on the value of action instead of like, here's another dashboard that may or may not make sense to you. I think is a fantastic angle here to go after. In terms of Otto, so Otto being the AI portion of Search Atlas, or at least one part of the AI, how does it go about identifying these technical issues? So you mentioned WordPress and Shopify. I'm assuming it's connecting via API, and that is it's actually like going into your website and fixing everything. Is that kind of how it works?
Yeah, so the way it auto works, it's actually agnostic to the CMS. So it doesn't matter what your website is built on. If you even just had like HTML files and you built a website out of that, it would still work. The way that we do it is we start by crawling the domain and analyzing all of its pages. And we analyze every web page for over 200 different technical SEO problems or content issues or various SEO problems that we know that we can repair. We start with that. And then what we do is we layer in all of your first party data so we can connect into your Search Console, your Google Business Profile, a knowledge graph that you can configure with whether, we even work with different languages, Greg. So like you can have a website in Portuguese and Otto will optimize it in Portuguese as well. So there's some configuration in there. You set it up properly. And then what Otto will do is it will basically give you a full list of recommendations and say, like, we should fix these titles, these metas, these images, these landing pages are missing headings. We've got all these problems across the website, missing internal links, etc. Hundreds of thousands of suggestions. And then what you can do is you have an option to deploy them. You can just hit the deploy button either at the category level or at the individual fix level or at the entire site level. There's a I'm feeling lucky button where you can deploy everything if you just want to just hit the go
The
button
luck of
and
the edge.
live on the edge. And what's cool though is like, the thing is a lot of people are actually pressing that button first because Auto has so many fixes. And when you go through it and you look at the fixes, like you're like, yeah, this fix makes sense. Like you'll read them and you'll be like, yeah, I like these recommendations generally. And it makes more sense to start with deploying all of them than deploying just like one by one, right? So that's how it works. What it does is it will actually go in and make the changes into the landing page that Google can see that change. And so when Google reindexes the site and the pages, they will see all the new on page optimizations. But Auto doesn't just do on page, it also has off page strategies. We acquired a PR distribution service recently, Signal Genesis, the fourth largest press release service in the world. Now we can get you backlinks and features from AP News, Dow Jones, NASDAQ, Yahoo News, MSN, all these marquee local and national news websites. We also have cloud stacks in there so you can automatically build cloud stacks from DR 70 plus websites. So it's got those off page modules in there too. And essentially, what it's doing is it's basically automating holistic SEO. And we're always adding in new modules, new innovation. We're running, I think, the largest SEO program in the world. It's across thousands of websites and optimizing them in a real time basis. So it's pretty cool what we're able to do. And what we also are looking forward to trying is some new advanced SEO strategies that will let people opt into that are more experimental. If you want to add your site to the experiment, which I highly recommend, because usually there's a reason behind it. You can see massive gains without having to really be the guy in charge. The way that I see it is like when you install Auto on your website, it's my responsibility to get you results. And I lose sleep over this. I'm like, are we getting enough results? Are we seeing enough gain across the portfolio? Because the only reason you would use this technology is if it helps you. If it doesn't help you, don't use it, right? So that's my job, is to make sure that it's effective and that our SEO program is always cutting edge and we're always finding new strategies to get even better results for you guys in the community. That's my job.
So if I'm understanding it right, with Otto, you guys can see, like, if I want to be part of this experiment, you guys can see that data that's coming in, I assume, again, through like my Google Analytics or whatever. So is that kind of how you are doing experimentations at scale, by inviting your users in to do the experiment with you and then you're aggregating that data? Is that kind of one of the benefits of doing this?
Yeah, well, there's two kinds of experiments we do. There's the kind of phase one testing where we test it on our own test sites.
Hmm.
Like your sites would be used for that. We only use our own test sites. That's how we learn. Once we learn something that's creative and insightful and interesting, then we add it into Auto as a new module. And some of those modules, they're just open to everyone. And there's going to be some modules, like we have a new one that's called community linking, where you can actually build backlinks for other people in the community. And in exchange, the community will build backlinks for you from relevant sites, which is pretty creative.
Mm.
That is an experiment that you can opt into.
Very cool. I like this. I think that's using the data in a very, very cool way that helps out the rest of the community. So very awesome, man. You kind of mentioned a bit of what you're doing. I mean, with all the experimentation, I imagine this is a big part of the answer to my next question. But this industry changes a lot. And in my experience, like I remember I used to have like 20 different SEO tools I was paying every month for. And that has thankfully minimized dramatically over the years. Also realizing most of them were pretty bad with help to cancel those subscriptions. But what are you doing to stay ahead? Like you mentioned the experimentation stuff, but like they're moving very fast these days. So how do you stay ahead in the industry?
Well, we always double down, triple down on our testing. The only way to know what works is to test. And we have to do those single variant tests. So, what we do is we really focus on that. We also kind of have a standing order with our HR team to hire and bring on the best talent possible. So, whenever we find people that are really onto something big, we try to collaborate with them and bring them into our team. So, for example, guys like Lane Hauk and Matt Henry from Signal Genesis, they're a part of our leadership team. People like really creative, brilliant minds, like Kyle Roof, you mentioned Kyle, similar community, Khazra Dash, as well as Corey Tugberg Gabur. People like that, we bring them into our community and we actually try to get them onto our advisory board so we can work together with them and keep advancing and trailblazing, sharing our research, sharing their research, and masterminding with them in an in-person context to keep advancing the industry forward.
Well, I'm glad you name dropped all those people because they're my friends, and I'm going to send them this podcast link and tell them like, "Hey, we were talking about you." They'll have to listen to the very end to get to that one section where you mentioned their names. Do me a favor, if you're friends with Castra, just start calling him Greg, and don't explain why you're doing that. It will be a
Yeah.
very funny joke. Let me know how it goes if you start calling Castra Greg. It's between him and me, but I think he'll catch on soon if you do it often enough. Anyways, I love everything you had to say there. We're coming up on the end of the podcast. I really enjoyed this talk. I think it has been really good. But before we end this podcast, I do have 3 questions left for you in the rapid fire section where I ask rapid questions and you give me a rapid answers. So are you ready to answer them, my friend?
Let's do it.
Awesome. So, rapid fire question number 1. In your view, what is the best hidden growth opportunity inside of SEO today?
Google Maps. Google Maps is so easy to rank for. Getting a G&B ranking is something that we could do very consistently within probably 2 to 3 weeks with a combination of off page and on page and GBP optimization automation. Google Maps is amazing. The amount of intent that's there and the lack of competitiveness makes it a really great place for local businesses, or even if you're an agency, build a GBP profile for your business and get it ranking in your local market and get leads. It works really well. And it's one that I think almost anyone can do.
And Search Atlas, I'm assuming, has some features for the map pack. Yeah.
Yes, we have GBP automations in Otto, and we actually have our case studies where we show that even GBP posting, adding question and answers to GBPs, and optimizing the page that's linked to from the GBP with semantic SEO and NLP and all that right information, that will make the map go from red to green very quickly.
Very nice. Very cool. All right. Question number 2. What tools or resources would you recommend for an SEO to use to scale their campaigns?
Well, obviously, I'm going to be partial here, guys, but Otto has been the name of the game of that for us because our agency, we have probably 400 clients we're working with. We work with some of the largest white label SEO firms in the country, like the Hoth, Agency Elevation, and they're using it to scale their SEO campaigns, both from a results perspective as well as from an operations perspective. So I would highly recommend, if you haven't explored this before, dynamic SEO is, I think, going to be the future of the industry. And now is like a great time to hop on the bandwagon and test it out. Other resources that I would recommend, my friend Mike King had a really great expose about the Google algorithm leak that I think he did one of the best jobs out there to unpack and demystify the Google algorithm. Would highly recommend reading his post about it because he explains basically holistic SEO, all the components of it within the algorithm. He doesn't call it that, but that's what it is.
That's awesome. Mike King, I loved it what he wrote. I remember reading that article. I thought it was a great breakdown for sure. But I am on my final question for you, man, and is the hardest question. Tell me, what is your funniest moment since you started working in this whole crazy SEO world?
Funniest moment. Let's see here. I think one of the areas of comedy is always seeing like what kind of companies come in and ask to work with us, and looking at like the new leads channel can be pretty hilarious. It's amazing how many different kinds of businesses do SEO. We had like a blow up doll company reach out to us and sign up and use our technology to help them. And they were reaching out, and like the pages they were sending with these hyper realistic animatronic, like, sex dolls, were, it was like, it was hilarious and a little disturbing at how realistic they were. But I think that was probably the funniest, is just seeing these like really unorthodox businesses coming to our door and being like, well, what do we do with them?
I get a similar experience at Empire Flippers because we get a lot of businesses submitted to us, right? I think we average between like a little bit over 200 businesses a week who would like submit to us, want to sell, right? And I remember very early on in my career, there's this guy. He was making like 2-3 grand a month, and it was a microservice business where he would deliver Toasties, a grilled cheese sandwich, to your mailbox in the UK, and you can like upgrade it and customize it, and it would come on a weekly or a daily basis, and it was like the Uber of Toasties. And like, what a weird business. And also, I don't think this is a great idea to have this like cheese sandwich in your mailbox just like sitting around in there. So this was like before that, like the food delivery apps was a thing. So this is like back in 2016, before those apps had really taken off. So it was a pretty novel idea for this very niche food category.
Yeah. But I'm so glad that someone felt like that needed to be done, that needed to be
Right?
made.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gives me hope for the future.
Hopefully he's turned the grilled cheese sandwich business into a 9-figure business since I looked at. But hey man, I really enjoyed this podcast. It was a blast. I really enjoyed what you had to say about being solutions oriented with your SaaS, because like I do feel the pain of that. Like whenever I logged into SEMrush or Ahrefs, it's like, oh my God, what do I do with this data? And then there's also like terms that they're using that I know can't be trusted. So like I'm glad to hear what you had to say about Search Atlas. But for anyone in my audience who wants to pick your brain, connect with you, or maybe they want to give this a spin for themselves, where should they go to connect with you?
The best place to find me is going to be on Facebook. We've got a Facebook community called SEO Theory. Welcome to join and kind of learn from the community and from us. I do bi-weekly webinars where I kind of talk about our experiments and what we're doing. So if you're interested in that, feel free to tune in there. And then if you'd like to give Search Atlas and Otto a spin, just go to searchatlas.com. There's a free trial available on the homepage. You can get 14 days of just trying the system out and seeing if it works for you without having to pay for it. So please give that a try. And I'm pretty confident you're going to get good results. And also make sure you take advantage of our onboarding. So we have real time onboarding. So once you sign up, if you want help setting it up or need a little bit of help getting started, someone from my team can jump in with you and get you going on the system.
Awesome, man. We'll put all those links in the show notes down below. And thanks for coming on.
Absolutely a pleasure, Greg. Thank you for having me.
There you have it. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it got you inspired at all the different things that are happening in this industry. And of course, if you just want to buy a highly profitable business, you can always go to empireflippers.com/marketplace, or maybe you want to make an exit of your highly profitable business, and you could go to empireflippers.com/sell your site. I've been your host, Greg. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you leave a review, give us a like, a follow, share it across social media. Talk to you all soon. See you on the next episode.